Okay, welcome to the CHRISTWVRKS podcast, and today we've got Sarah Louise Alexanders, one of the tattooers at Red, Hot and Blue. Do you want to just quickly explain the sort of style of tattoo you do?
So it's kind of like illustrative, I guess. I always kind of say it's like doodly, but I think that that's maybe like it doesn't make it sound great. But yeah, illustrative. Like
Yeah, I think
like I do a lot of black and a lot of like line work stuff, but I also do kind of like some bits which have like flat kind of shading and different like grays and sometimes color now. So I don't think I like legitimately fit into the black work category anymore. But maybe.
Yeah, I mean the black work thing. Me and Dan Morris were talking about that yesterday, actually, about how the meaning of that word is like over the last 10 years is kind of quite drastically. Well, like you could say at one point it was changing, and then now it's lost all meaning at all.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, at one point it was just like everyone was doing black work, so I was all kind of a bit like I don't want to do black work, even though I was doing black work, but I was just like resistant. It's like just when I don't know, it all just got very popular, and then when you want to be edgy, and you're like, I don't want to be a black work guy, but I probably was a black work guy. But yeah, I mean, it's all sort of be whatever what you want, eh? So
Yeah, well, it's just like at first it was like that word was almost exclusively for like geometric pattern stuff, and then when the kind of medieval light woodcut stuff started getting more and more popular, then it was that as well, and then now it almost seems like people it's just like instead of black and gray, they're just like, oh, it's black work, it's like.
Well, that's true.
It can mean anything now. Just that anything that doesn't have color is black work.
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess that works if it's black. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it does it sort of broadens it to a point where you're just like, right, well, it's just tattoos now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But
I mean, I think also for the sort of notion of black work has changed as well, because it used to be very much something like it was like something only certain people did, and like it was like this very kind of like hipstery club, but now there's like Pinterest black work, and like it is something that just it's almost like it's the most commonly done type of thing, like because it's so like straightforward and sort of just like easy and easy like easy for someone to want. I mean, because it's similar to a drawing.
Yeah, I think it definitely, because it lends itself to sort of like illustrative kind of styles where you've just got sketches, and now people I think people who are not necessarily into like tattoos can be into like black works or illustrative stuff because they just like kind of like sketches and things, and then now that they know that they can like, even if they do their own sketch, they can get tattooed on themselves, so it's sort of like a gateway for maybe like a different kind of crowd of illustrators like who want to do tattoos and who also like want to get tattoos,
Yeah, I think that the sort of the rise in this sort of like like the little the mountain scene in a diamond thing, like you're saying, it's like a gateway thing. I think that's what's been cool about it, is that it has given people this like kind of foot in the door to actually go and experience a tattoo shop and then go, it's not as intimidating as I thought it was. And then they get something like that, which is, like, pretty common or whatever. But then, they get like, especially with you, I think you're the best example of that, is that you were for a while doing like just absolutely insane, like, you're like one of the most prolific tattooers in Edinburgh. And you were doing all these like really commonly done tattoos, but just so many of them. But then now all those customers are coming back and being like, what do you want to do? Like, I'm shooting flash and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's like partially because you need to make money though as well. Do you know, like when you're like, because I've been working in Edinburgh like 6 years now, so at the very beginning, like I'm like drawing all my flash and whatever, like got my design book, but no one wants it because no one knows who I am. So,
yeah.
So yeah, you do have to it's just part of the process of like building up a client base. But yeah, it's kind of, you kind of have to just like do what everyone wants so that they know that you're like nice enough and approachable enough to want to go back to, and like that your tattoo's not fucked up, and then they can come back and like start asking more questions once they're like in there and like got a feel for it, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't want someone else's thing for their first tattoo.
Yeah.
So, so there's a lot more pressure. But
I think, yeah, like there is like that huge thing of when people are like, oh, I want this thing, but I can't draw at all. And it's like, well, that's fine, because that's not your job. Like, you know, that's my job.
Yeah.
I think it's because just so many people do draw their own tattoos, and so like those people have been like, oh, my mate drew their own tattoo, so I guess that's just the way it works.
Yeah, and I think it's still like, it's not always easy. I think for people who aren't like, I think it's like easy to forget that it's difficult to put your ideas into pictures to explain it to somebody else if you're not a creative person.
Yeah.
So if you're like there trying to get your first tattoo and you're like, well, I can't draw and I can't describe it, so how am I going to get the tattoo?
Yeah, and then that's that. Yeah, the I like that, but it's not what I want thing. Yeah.
So it's tricky. It's tricky, but certainly like it's really nice when people start like kind of following on and staying with you, and then start asking you what you want to get, what you've got in your book and stuff. That's a nice progression, where you can go from custom stuff to people being like, oh, actually, what's in your brain and your design book, and I'll have that now, because I've like the 5 things that I wanted to do that I knew about, and then now I'll just get whatever. So,
yeah.
Good.
I mean, you're like, it's funny because, you know, like we think of traditional as being a very, it's like a sort of flash orientated type of tattooing. You know, in the modern, like, you know, like more so than other styles in the modern world, because obviously it's always been like that. But like you now are really flash oriented actually, like, and you do flash days like most weeks, or was it now like every second week?
Every Friday when I
so
can
it is
tattoo.
every week. Yeah.
Every Friday since last Christmas time or something. So
yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
it's good.
Yeah, I mean, having enough clients wanting to get your flash to be able to do that is nuts, really.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like when I first started doing the flash days, they sort of were quite slow, and I mean sometimes like still like over January and stuff, I still had like weeks where like I wasn't doing anything, but it's also like a nice time just to like know that once a week I have like firstly no homework on a Thursday night, and then like secondly just like a time where I should have like new flash drawn, so it's like good to me to like keep pushing like stuff, because that's the thing with like doing flash. I think like if you're not posting regularly like new things, then you just end up like people just, they don't see it and they forget about it, and so yeah, and it's kind of, you just need to sort of, because I draw sort of kind of more random flash than like more like traditional stuff, so for me it's really like I have to put out quite a lot of it to like catch a person who might be like, oh yeah, I want that weird thing on their body, you know.
Yeah, it's like, it's pretty rare that someone will be sitting there going like, I wish a tattoo artist would just draw a otter cleaning itself with a big scrubbing brush, like, or you know, like.
Although that one was a custom piece, so
yeah. Well, that was just the first example of one of your fucked up tattoos that I could think of, because that's one of my favorite ones. But
but I mean, sometimes I sit down and I'm like, right, I'll draw some stuff like that I think is gonna sell quite fast, and then I just don't, but I get distracted by like a different idea or whatever. So, but those are sometimes the ones that sell more than I expect. Like I drew these like worms that are, so I was going to draw some like traditional sailing knots to do like traditional tattoos, and then I drew them as worms instead of rope. And I was like, well, that's not a very sellable idea necessarily, not as much as rope, but I've actually sold a couple of them. So
no, yeah, well, like I think that's really like the stage that we're at in tattooing. Like when people talk about us, we're in like the renaissance of tattooing. I think that's a very good way of looking at it, because now it is like what people want is something that nods towards the tradition, but does it in a new and interesting way. So that is like a perfect example. And then for you, in particular as a tattooer, it's a really good example of like your style, because it's like you're not like redoing it in like a sort of you're not redoing them in a kind of way that's, you know, just easily palatable. It's very like of your brain, you know.
yeah.
Because it's like, you know, like for example, if a more traditional tattooer would have done that as snakes or something like that, right? But you did as fucking worms, right? So yeah.
Yeah. For ages, I really wanted to do. I haven't done them yet, but I really wanted to do some like battle royales that were with worms rather than with
but like, well, but then you'd have to have like 3 different types of worm.
No, you would have like a pigeon getting attacked by a worm.
Or like right.
Like a rock or something, rather than
right. So like the worm is like the dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that would be awesome. Like a full back of like this like giant worm being like. Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that might be one for the lockdown once I've finished what I'm on.
I mean, like, yeah, I would definitely say like your greatest attribute is your imagination. Like, do you have like a kind of mode of approaching coming up with new ideas? Like, do you have a kind of like a method, like a modus operandi when you're like, right, I need to come up, especially consider, I mean, surely you must do by this point because you're having to do that every fucking Friday.
Yeah, maybe, I guess. I mean, sometimes I just do like a brainstorm, but I'll do like a theme. Like quite often I'll think of like a theme and then I'll try and think of things that fit into that. So like seaside stuff, underwater stuff. What did I draw last time? Like the other last one that I did, which was like a theme, was I was doing like motivational coffee mugs.
Oh yeah.
So I was doing them, and then they just sort of like go off on a tangent, really. I
think just talking about the mugs, like just to interject, like that's one of my favorite things about you is that you do things that like you do pictures of objects that, you know, have no place being a tattoo whatsoever. You know? Like that's something that I'm really envious of you, because like my subject matter is always very like tattoo stuff, and I wish I had like the bravery that you have to like draw all this stuff that is just so not supposed to be a tattoo. Like, you know, like because we have the, you know, like the realm of things that get tattooed on people, and I stay within that quite a lot, like very almost pretty strictly, and you like your actual purpose is to only exclusively be out with that, you know.
Yeah, it's quite fun.
Is that like you done that on purpose, or is it just because it's you?
I think it's just because I draw stuff that like I want to get tattooed. Like I would, and I've never really, I've only recently started getting more traditional sort of themed tattoos. But when I first started drawing tattoos, it was for myself, and like they were always just like random stuff that I wanted. So I think maybe because I come from like a more sort of like, I don't come from like a traditionally like tattoo background. Like I didn't know anyone who was a tattooer before I started drawing tattoos. Like I didn't I read about stuff, but I wasn't like heavily into like the history of tattooing. But like, and I went to art college, and that sort of like my whole drawing was like just because I wanted to draw. And then I also really love tattoos, so then I just sort of mash them together, and then this is what happens.
Yeah. I think like that's, I think when it comes to any sort of art, what makes people, it's like when you have a song, right, that transcends all genres and stuff in terms of like, it doesn't matter what type of music you normally listen to, you hear certain songs and it resonates deeply with everyone. And what I think that is because it's like, that song is so deeply from within that person, and it's such a perfect encapsulation of how they were feeling that instantly it resonates. Like that sense of feeling, other people can sense that as well, just from hearing it or whatever. And what I love about your stuff is that it's like so intrinsically you know? Like, it's just, yeah, like only you could have made your stuff in terms of the ideas and everything, you know?
Thanks.
Yeah. What were we talking about before that? Yeah, your modus operandi I mean, so yeah, so so once you have your theme, you just kind of like riff on it until
yeah, and I mean, obviously, like some ideas you like write down and then they never amount to anything because you're just like, well, that's a naff one. But yeah, so like the thing that I'm working on just now is like that big doing like full body of Flash, and that sort of started being kind of circus themed just because I had an idea to put like an acrobatic lady on the belly. So yeah, it's definitely just tangents, and then you're like, right, well, what happens at a theme park? And then you're like, and then you just brainstorm off that. So you're like, fun mirrors, and then so I've drawn like weird guys in like the mirrors that make you look all.
Oh yeah.
But then I also drew some like rubbish because there's like shitloads of rubbish at theme parks, and some like tickets and some hot dogs. So it's just basically like, what would you find in like that theme?
Yeah.
Try and like, I guess I try and be as broad as possible with like what I think of, like not just like clowns and like not just like my first 5 thoughts. Like you kind of have to like push it beyond like your initial ideas, I think, and that's how you start getting the weirder stuff maybe. But yeah, it is also just like my brain. I like to look at stuff, and then quite often I'll look at stuff and I think it looks like something else, and I'm like, oh well, I'll just draw it as that. It's about overactive imagination. It's good for art, not so good for being in the dark, because but pros and cons.
So another thing that I wanted to ask you about was the raffle. Like, how did that actually come about?
So Adriana, who also works in Edinburgh, for your YouTube.
Oh, really?
I don't know how official I need to be with that. Yeah, she messaged me because she'd seen some people that she knows in Spain who were doing raffles for raising money for the hospitals, and then, well, it wasn't raffles, it was like an auction of paintings. So it would be like highest bidder gets the painting. And I'd actually just seen this raffle, which I got some tickets for, which was for like makers and designers for Glasgow Food Bank. So we sort of like combined the ideas, mostly because I don't really like the idea of just like people getting the prize because they have the most money. So like a raffle is much better suited to like what I would do. So now like someone could win the prize and they've only spent £2, you know. So
yeah, I hope that's the case with whoever gets my one.
Well,
so yeah, like how big is your painting, by the way?
It's like I think it's like
go like this.
I mean,
it's quite big then.
Yeah, it's like,
really? Fuck. Okay, well that's another thing, is mine's just fucking A4, and I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, but I mean that's all right. Like everyone's done something totally different.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to do a heron, and because they're quite detailed, I thought it'd be quite big. So yeah, and I think that we were gonna do like a NHS thing, but I think because the NHS is like a government funded body, I thought I'd rather donate to something a bit smaller.
Yeah.
That also shouldn't be funded by the government. So so then we settled on Women's Aid, which is a really good charity. So
yeah.
Aid.
Is there anyone who's not finished their piece yet? When is the raffle actually?
The raffle's next Friday, 1st of May. And I think we've got 28 people. So, and I think we've got maybe like 18. I've got pictures of 18 of them. So the other ones are maybe like people who haven't emailed them to me yet. And also, like, I think there's a few people.
And then Mark Murray.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, I was like, oh, bro, I found, because he was basically panicking because he doesn't have any paper. And then I was like, oh, man, I found like a bunch of it down like the back of like one of my wardrobes or something. And then I was like, do you want it? And he was like, yeah, come, you need to drop it at my house. And then I never heard from him. And then he was like, oh yeah, I found a bit of cardboard somewhere. So I don't need the paper now. And I was like,
well, this is good. It's forcing him to be creative with what he's got, the lockdown. So
so I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna ask you about the misogynist pigs that are in the tattoo industry.
Okay.
So
what are you gonna ask me about them?
Well, I mean, like I remember when you got interviewed about it before was for a feminist like fanzine kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, there's it was a couple of girls who were doing their, like, I can't remember what course they were doing at Napier, but they were part of society in Napier, and they were writing. I don't know if that ever got published because I never heard anything back from them. Maybe it didn't, but
I mean, like the one thing. Hang on a second. Someone's cutting their grass. One thing that I kind of remember from that was that you were saying to me that that you kind of felt like they were asking you very leading questions, and that you kind of felt like you were almost letting them down.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that there's people who are more qualified to talk about that sort of stuff than me.
Why do you say that?
Because I haven't had like a lot of direct experience, so I can't say, like, from my experience, the majority of the people that I've worked with have been great, and like sometimes you get some like naff chat which is like ill thought through, but like generally
that's saying that almost like that you're disappointed that it's not happened to you then, isn't it?
No, not at all. No, what I mean is that, like, if what I don't want to say, like, my experience is fine, and then for the takeaway to be the industry is fine, you know. There are people who have experiences that should be light should be shed on them, and I just can't do that for them because mine's been fine. But
do you think things of that nature happen to a greater extent in the tattoo industry than in any other industry? Because obviously it's just a societal problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think
there's no industry that doesn't have it.
Yeah, it obviously happens everywhere. I think that there's the tattoo industry, because it was so male dominated for so long.
Isn't that the same with everything as well?
Well, yes, but I mean, there are industries that were slower on the uptake of like women getting into them, and I think maybe because like tattooing has such a kind of was like more underground and more like of a gang sort of culture, like to begin with, like all of that I think has a higher like misogynistic kind of like base level. So yeah, I would say that probably they might have a slightly like a higher like number of people, but I think that the more like obviously like the more different people that come into an industry, the like more like diverse everything is, and the less opportunity people have to like stick to their original like kind of thought patterns. Like, it's not even that I necessarily think that people are like bad or like inherently like misogynistic, like I think that they could changed their minds. It's just that they just haven't had anyone question them. And if you're just like in your tattoo studio with your guys you've been working with for 40 years and you never had a female tattooer in there, like people just like riff off of whatever they're around, you know. So like the more diversity they see, the better, really. I think it's probably a little it would be different as well for people, customers coming into that sort of environment as opposed to like fellow tattooers.
Yeah,
well.
yeah, that's one thing I was going to say is when you're talking about that, are you talking about what male customers can be like, or are you talking about like having like other, your colleagues, you know?
Yeah, I guess
that's two very different things,
yeah.
right?
So like there I'm talking about colleagues.
Yeah.
And I think that in like pretty much like tattooers are just like tattooers, and they're not, I don't feel like I get treated differently because I'm a girl around other tattooers, you know. So but certainly with customers you get treated differently, but I think that's just like what you get when you're in sort of like a public facing job. Like I haven't had it quite so much since I moved like to different studios and like since I've been working for longer, but definitely when I used to do like kind of more reception roles, or like we didn't have a receptionist in the first studio that I worked in, so I did field a lot of like questions of, can I speak to the tattooer? And this was when I was tattooing and stuff, and I'd be like, yeah, you're speaking to them, and they'd be like, no, I want to speak to like the tattooers, like, and I'd be like, right, well, come back another day. And then they wouldn't come back, but they wanted to speak to the guys. And I mean, that's like pretty shitty, but honestly, like it's like one person in like a whole heap of people, and you just don't need to tattoo them. Like that's the good thing about it, is you can just be like, go away.
Yeah, I'm no longer interested in engaging in this relationship further. I mean, especially I think in regards to the sort of male-female client tattooer relationship, like it is different if they're coming, like, because when you're colleagues, there's some sort of like you're working together, but then there's maybe some sort of element of hierarchy there, but then which there shouldn't be, but there nearly always is, and then but with the clients, they're like coming to you because they want something from you, right? So you would imagine that there's some sort of element of like professional respect there.
Yeah, well, I think it depends on whether people see you as someone who like owes them something, or someone that they're asking for. Like I think a lot of people, it's just like hospitality. Like some people come at you being like, you need to give me this, like tattoo me today for less than £40. I'm ready right now, you know, like, and then those are the people who are generally like ruder than others. And then some people are like, when can you tattoo me? What can we do? And they want to have a conversation, and they want to like make something together, you know.
There's very few people that are in the middle of that, actually, right? So like and it's not to say that there's like half of them are the really polite and half of them are like, there's very few people, or at least in our experience, that are like that kind of rude, like demanding, or like at least now that we're all working at Red Hot and Blue and stuff, we get very few of those people that are very demanding and stuff. But like it is very rare that you have someone that's kind of sitting in the middle there, you know.
Yeah, and I think that comes from a little bit when you're working in a studio, which is like not really like a walk-in shop. Like Red Hot and Blue is a walk-in shop, but like when you're a person working and you take bookings and you're like booking in advance, I think, and especially also if you're someone who deals with your customers yourself, or like they don't have a receptionist to go through, I think sometimes people I think you might find this, like, since, because you did do reception at Studio 13 for so long, like that people are a lot ruder to receptionists than they are to I think because I do all my own bookings and stuff, like they don't want to, like, people think that receptionists are sort of disposable, so then it doesn't matter what they say to them, which is like bullshit. But I think as soon as like a tattooer would come out and be like, hey, actually no, you can't do that, then they suddenly go all like meek.
Yeah, no, that was that used to really fuck me off when people were really dismissive of me, and also like when they did that thing where they force you to go and ask a tattooer a question that you've just told them the answer to, and then you have to come back and tell them exactly the same thing but try and not be arsey about it, and it's like, you know.
Yeah.
Or a tattooer has to come and it's like they used to really fuck me off watching their tone and their mannerisms change from the way that they were talking to me, which is very confrontational and stuff. And then as soon as like, you know, one of the tattooers would come out, they would like almost morph into a different person. I would just be like, fuck you know, like who the fuck do you think you are? Like, you know, like why do you have to like take this one tiny opportunity to feel like you have some like bit of power, you know, by you know, imposing your petty will on someone that basically, you know, can't speak back to you in the way that you deserve to be spoken back to.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
But yeah, I mean, it's just because you're like you're just like in the way at that point.
Yeah, that's it.
The tattooers. So.
That's exactly it. When you're working reception in a tattoo shop, you kind of feel like that a lot of the customers, like the RC customers, they feel like you're just there to ruin their day, and like all you're there to do is to not let them get what they want.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would I do that? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I also kind of feel like, so when I've been done music interviews, and because I'm kind of involved in like black metal and stuff, and there's a lot of like the whole racism thing revolving around that at the moment, and I get asked about that, and then they, you know, ask me like, what's the that sort of situation in Scotland? I'm like, absolutely non-existent. Like I've never, it just doesn't happen. You know, it's just not a thing. And all the English guys are like, oh, that's amazing. And I'm just like, yeah, well, I like, because I see all this stuff on the internet, and I'm like, I have no experience in that whatsoever. And then I kind of like, in terms of talking about female tattooers working in Scotland, I kind of feel like all like the male, at least all the guys that are like within our circle and in our realm, they're all like sort of like guys like our age who are all much more like kind of left wing kind of people, like liberal people, and like this sort of misogynistic like kind of like feeling like a female tattooer just absolutely like will never compare to a male. That just like attitude just like non-existent, you know. And like and obviously I'm only talking about that like from what my experience is. I just kind of feel like, obviously I'm biased towards this, but I kind of feel like Scotland is maybe different, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
don't
know.
want to say that, but like,
yeah,
in my experience,
I think maybe it's just the circles that we run in. I think we're lucky. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, maybe.
I think so, because I don't think, like, as much as I would like to believe that Scotland is like a little utopia, it's not quite there yet. So
no,
it's kind of, I think that's what I mean when I say like, there's people who are better informed or like have, who should like would be better people to interview about that. You know what I mean? Like because so far I've been quite fortunate, apart from like the odd like customer thinking that I'm not a tattooer or whatever, and but I'm also like lucky enough to like that doesn't really bother me too much. I mean, I think it bothered me more when I was like a younger tattooer who still pretty fresh tattooer, but like when I was like just finished my apprenticeship and like I was like, I'm a tattooer, and then people were like, no, you're not, you're a girl, and like then you're like, you have
and you're like, maybe I'm not a tattooer.
yeah.
Well, yeah, it's because you don't have the your confidence is really fragile at that point because you don't really have anything to back it up.
Yeah.
So it's very easily dismantled.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like when I got scammed when I got copied on the internet, and then I started to worry that I hadn't actually done the tattoos that I'd done. Because Mel telling me I hadn't done them all, and I was like, I really have. He like trolled me on the internet for ages, being like, this girl, this bitch is a liar. Blah 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 blah. These are all not her pictures, and I was like, what's happened?
Yeah, you got kind of gaslighted.
Yeah, but. Yeah, so that was funny. But that was also when I was new. Like, now I'm sure that I did them, so it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like, yeah. No, I definitely believe my memories that I had from doing it. But it's okay. So that is one thing that I've worked with a lot of female tattooers actually in my short career because I mean the first shop that I was tattooing in, it was like I think at one point I was like the only guy, and there was like 5 of us or whatever. And the one thing that I definitely would, if there was going to be one thing that divides male and female tattooers, is the level of confidence in oneself that girls, from what I've seen, struggle to be as belligerently arrogant as most male tattooers are, but like we benefit from that, there's like the confidence, like self-assuredness and confidence, like it really benefits you as a tattooer because you're having to present your work to people, which is like nerve-wracking as fuck, like this feeling of like, oh fuck, are they gonna like it, and I do think the way in which you present your work to people changes their attitude towards it, like in that moment as well. So it's like little things like that can really, really benefit you. But I definitely feel like that, like, girls that I've worked with, they don't immediately have self-assurance in a way that a lot of guys should probably have less of it, and it's like that, like more, like a lot of guys should be less arrogant and confident, and then a lot of girls definitely need to be much more confident than they are.
Right. Well, I think that's what they say. I think that's what a lot of people have argued, that like even in all sorts of business, it's confidence and like asking for what you deserve is something that's like taught to women from a young age, like where like women are, I mean, less and less so now, like who's like newer, like younger, even like my little sister's generation, I'm like, wow, you guys are like so much more like on it, like not on it, but like just so much more self-confident than like I was at their age. And I think that that's like a good change, really good change. But yeah, you were not necessarily, you're kind of like, there's this sort of like idea that girls should be like sort of unobtrusive and like kind of not demanding, and like there's loads of like tropes about what like a woman is like, and this like it's all sort of like fed into, which leads you to like sort of minimize yourself in a way, which like men aren't taught to do that.
It's like we're confident and assertive, and you're bossy and exactly.
So that's a thing that you have to sort of like fight against, but obviously like you just like have to practice like sticking up for yourself. But I do think also there's like a strength in being like not necessarily like excessively confident, like outwardly, like the arrogance that you're talking about. I think that there's something in like being able to present your like work and stuff to people in a way which they relate to, like that you're like, it depends on really your clientele. And I think that's what with tattooing now, that you can find like your like own pocket of like customers and your own niche of like design and stuff, that that's sort of less of a like issue, I think. Because I think if you're someone who's not necessary, as long as you're confident enough to do the social media that you have to do, like you can basically pitch yourself however you want and hopefully find the people who relate to that. Because a lot of people will not want to get tattooed by someone who's like super in their face. Because they'll want to be maybe tattooed by someone who's a bit more similar to them, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that I need to look at, the way that I present myself on the internet, because I like what Abby said to me a while ago is that people don't realize, because they don't know you, they don't realize that you're joking a lot of the time.
I would say probably true. That's probably right.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, I have had it a lot that my customers say to me that they're surprised at how like sort of jovial and friendly I am. But then I'm like, well, why are you even here? Like, if you like, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that probably your work and like your work would draw people in anyway, and then they might just be like, well, I really want this work. Maybe he might be
just
scared.
Gonna have to put up with it.
And then they turn up and you're like nice to them and they're like, okay, I'll get some more, you know. But if you had the attitude that they like, I'm not saying all people think that you're going to have a bad attitude, but if like a few people were like, oh, this guy sounds scary, and then they would go to get a tattoo, maybe get one tattoo from you, but like your returning customers is what proves that you have like a good manner with people.
Yeah, I think like what you were saying earlier about finding people that like, you know, like your work resonates with. And it's like, if you're doing stuff that is really like uniquely you know, like, and it is really tapping into like who you are as a person and an artist or whatever, I think that, you know, that's what's so brilliant about the internet now, is that we can find the other mutants in the world like us, you know, like, you know, like they're like, that's what the internet's been so good for, is creating communities of people, you know, from all around the world and stuff, that like, you know, they thought they were alone, but really there is loads of, you know, whatever way you are, there is loads of other people like you.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what's so great about Instagram, is that everyone is on there, so you will be able to find all the other people that are like you and that are into all the same stuff as you, you know.
Yeah, it's really good. But yeah, I mean, I don't believe that you're scary because I've known you for long enough now, so I sort of don't, like, the first impression's lost on me now. Just presume you're joking most of the time.
No, you get well angry at me for some of the stuff that I say.
Oh, Greta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's mostly because it's in a work context, and I know that the other people around don't know that you're like maybe stirring stuff for like
for comedic effect.
Yeah, so I'm like very aware that there's like, that is the, like, they just think that you just started a fucking like inappropriate conversation for no reason.
Yeah, because I'm a terrible bastard. Yeah. Oh well, cool, man. So thank you so much for talking to me. I think we talked about some cool stuff.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I haven't too much of a noob on YouTube. I think this is my first YouTube thing. So.
For the YouTubes.
Yeah. Old lady Sarah on YouTube.
Cool, man. I'll talk to you again
later.
soon.
All right, bye.